Belize's population in October 2022 was estimated at almost 445,000. The working age population, comprising of persons 14 years and older, was recorded at 73.4%, and the employed were considered to be any of these individuals who worked for a minimum of 1 hour during the week in which a survey was conducted. S.I.B statistician Wendy Benavides shared how many people were employed and how many weren't.
In October 2022, there were 191,728 persons in the labor force, or 58.7% of the working age population. The remaining 41.3% were persons outside the labor force, estimated at 134,775. The estimated number of unemployed persons was 9,644, which represented a 5% unemployment rate. Employed persons were estimated at 182,084 persons, or 95% of the labor force.
A further breakdown of the labor force statistics showed that the youths made up 43.9% of the total number of persons employed, while 64.3% were adults. 34.7% of these employed persons were young women, but adult men registered the highest employment rate at 81.1%. The Stantric district had the highest unemployment rate at 7.8%, and Cayo recorded the lowest with 3.5%. But while its statistics show that Belize's employment rate was at above average figures, how the country's economy performed in the third quarter, that is, from July to September, was also encouraging by the figures that statistician Christopher Hulse shared.
From July to September of 2021, the total was $1.043 billion. Compared to July to September of 2022, goods and services produced totaled $1.176 billion, which is an increase of $133.4 million, or 12.8%. If we compare the first 9 months, since this third quarter ends at September, so from January to September of 2021 compared to January to September of 2022, we observe a 12.3% growth.
The tertiary sector, which comprises services, represents the largest share of the GDP from July to September of 2022. That sector contributed $738.5 million, or 62.8%. Secondary products, which are byproducts, contributed $194.8 million, or 16.6%. And thirdly, the primary, or raw products, contributed $77.1 million, or 6.5% of GDP. Taxes collected also played a role at $198 million, or 14.1%. Cost of living for the months January to November of 2022 was, like the previous year, high, mostly because of the price of fuel and its trickling effects on the economy. To help us with those figures was statistician Melvin Perez.
The cumulative inflation rate for the first 11 months in the year of 2022, when compared to the same period of the year of 2021, stood at 6.2%. This means that overall, the average cost of regular purchased goods and services increased by 6.2%. It is clearly showing us how prices has been moving throughout the years, specifically starting from November of 2020, where prices started to increase up to November of 2022. All fuel prices started to increase heavily in the middle of the year 2020, up to November of 2022.
External trade, that is how much we export and import, is also directly linked to the performance of the economy. And according to statistician Stephanie Vasquez, Belize's imports and exports significantly increased.
For the period January to November 2022, Belize's imports stood at $2.5 billion. This represented a significant increase of 32.7%, or $617.8 million when compared to that same period in 2021. This almost one-third increase in import spending reflected the fact that commodity prices hit record highs in the year 2022, with the cost of food, fuel, and fertilizers, to name a few, increasing drastically on the world market. Belize's domestic exports for the period January to November 2022 were valued at $458.8 million, as export earnings increased by a noteworthy 14.7%, or $58.8 million when compared to that same period in 2021.
Vasquez said that Belize's revenues from exports were higher also because our exports earned better prices on the world market. But earnings from bananas plummeted by 10% over 2021 because of diseases and shortage of labor. Reporting for News 5, I'm Marion Ali.